Good afternoon. I'm Tarek Patel, your host.
I'm Randy Rosenblum in Greenville, South Carolina, and this is SoCal Prep Report.
He's not alone. He's found a home. That's right. It's Randy Rosenblum coming in from South Carolina, I think for a third straight week. I've lost. Listen, people forget I got 2 kids now, so I don't know which way's up, down, south, east, west, but I do know it's another edition of SoCal Prep Report. Welcome in. We do have Randy, of course, remote. He has now moved to South Carolina for those that maybe don't know. But the update I'm willing to hear, that I want to hear, is that he's found a home. He's made it across the country. He's found a home, him and his wife, Catherine. So, Randy, how'd you find it? Give us the story. And how proud of you are you of this new purchase?
We're excited. We combed the area. We looked at about 10 or 12 homes. One stood out. It's fairly close to where I'm staying now. It's where the grandchildren are. It's a beautiful home. It was priced correctly. It's 3-bedroom, 2-bath. We'll be in it probably in about 30 days. So I'm pumped up to get in the house, unpack, and start here in Greenville. By the way, the weather still has been gorgeous. We have not had any rain. It's been 80 to 90 every day.
Just wait, my friend. The humidity is coming, and it'll come with a fury. But glad to hear that. It sounds like so far you have had a very smooth transition from the West Coast to the East Coast. Like that is a long trek. So congrats to you and your lovely wife on your new home. Hopefully escrow goes smoothly and you guys move in just fine. We will also move on. We got baseball, more playoffs to cover. Of course, the top Division 1's in the southern section. I mean, the juggernauts that competed this past week in the elimination game. So we're going to go over these scores real quick. And what stood out to me, Randy, was they were all lopsided. I wasn't expecting this. You know, this 16-team field loaded with talent and great programs. And real quick, just to recap, these were all teams that were 1-1 through pool play. So in order to advance to the quarterfinals, they all had single game eliminations to finish pool play out. And these were the games. But look, really not one game close. Any theory on why that might be?
Not really. You get certain situations, and if you get up big in an elimination game, sometimes the team that's trailing knows the season's over. So that would be my one theory. The team gets a jump on you, and you think you're out and done. What stood out to me was Drew Slevkov of Cyprus. He pitched against Sierra Canyon. He shuts them out on a 4-hitter, wins the game 8-0, has 11 Ks. Drew doesn't throw exceptionally hard. He's in the low 90s, maybe tops off at maybe 92. Great control. He understands the strike zone. He's a pitcher's pitcher. And this kid down the road is going to be a major league draftee. Remember the name, Drew Slevkov of Cyprus. And his performance against the Trailblazers was outstanding.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. So our friend Jack Paulin, who we've known for years, works at Sierra Canyon, he's at the game. We're on the phone the next day, and he goes, Tarek, this Slevko kid, he goes, he's going to be a pro. He's like, not only does he throw hard, and he said he made this, and by the way, Tom Musborn, great coach at Sierra Canyon, has his team ready, and Jack was saying Slevko made them look like JV. I mean, those were his words. And he said not only the throws, but his mound presence. Something about him came off prolific. So I love that you said he's going to probably play in the bigs one day. It sounds like he's headed that way, and he's got some more baseball to play. So now we have the matchups for the quarterfinals to show you. And again, more heavy-hitting teams still alive. The Harvard Westlakes of the world, and so on and so forth. Here are the matchups. Cyprus, Harvard Westlake, Corona, Notre Dame, St. John Bosco, La Mirada. To me, what kind of stands out, Norco, the #1 seed, still alive. Of the 9 divisions in the southern section playing playoff baseball, only, I believe, 2 or 3 #1 seeds are still alive. That's it. So Norco still being alive is quite impressive. And then you've got teams like Notre Dame and Harvard Westlake from the Mission League still alive. Anything that jumps out to you in those matchups?
Well, James Tronstein at Harvard Westlake has had the best year of anybody around. He's hitting well over 500. He has close to double digits in home runs. I believe he's at 9, knocks in a lot of runs, leads the team in stolen bases. And Harvard Westlake maybe the best team out there, although I still love St. John Bosco. Also, you mentioned Norco. They lost a game. They were number one, but they feel good now that they've been able to move into the quarterfinals. So you got to watch Norco. But with James Tronstein on the roster, the way Harvard Westlake is playing, I think the Cypress-Harvard Westlake game's a real good game to watch.
I'll ask you one last thing before we move on to D2. All these pool play winners, they've had like a week off. You know, a little bit of a layoff there. What do you think about that? You think that could impact some of these guys, or you think they'll be ready to go?
It certainly will impact you. You'll be more rested, but you're anxious. You've been sitting around for a week. We see that in the NBA playoffs. Teams start slow after a long layoff. It can happen here. You want to keep playing. These guys are young. They want to perform. So I agree with you. I think it's going to give a slight advantage early in the games to the team that won the elimination game. They're coming in with a little bit of momentum. They'll always be the underdog because the other team's the higher seed.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I think it is an advantage to have that win in the elimination game and play the higher seeds while they rested.
One more week of Southern Section postseason to go. We're going to look at the Division II bracket, some second-round scores, and then the quarterfinals. Look, I think there are teams like Ganesha still alive. Ganesha's got Logan Schmidt, who, remember, Ganesha, let's not forget, this is kind of a interesting program. A lot of their players are online only. They don't really come to school. And then Logan Schmidt is this player that seems to be the #1 high school arm in the country, and no one really knows who the guy is. I think he's been homeschooled, but now he comes and plays for Ganesha. So they're still alive in Division II. And then the last ad, Loyola and Alemany, two Mission League teams matching up in the quarterfinals, which should be a fun game.
It's how Loyola got there. They were way back. They were trailing 5-0 against Chaminade and had a great rally. Marcus Mayer had the game-winning hit. And we've seen in certain situations, I mentioned earlier, some of the teams that fell behind quit. The season was over. We've also seen some great comebacks. We saw Norco in the first round come from way back.
That's right.
They were down 7-3 late and beat Maranatha. Here, Loyola in D2, their season on the line. It's one and done. They rally, they get the big hit late, and they win the baseball game. That was impressive to come from behind and get the W for the Cubs.
Yeah, sorry, I've got the stat right here. Only 2 #1 seeds remain in the Southern Section. And in fact, 3 of the #1 seeds lost in the opening round, so they didn't even make it too deep into their respective rounds. So that's the D2 bracket. Of course, there's 9 divisions in total. Go ahead.
Add one thing there. What's interesting about that, Miracosta is the only one that hasn't lost. Remember, Norco was the #1 seed.
That's a fair point.
They lost a baseball game.
That's true.
The format, they had the opportunity to come back and still could win it. They can afford the loss. So Miracosta, of all the divisions, is the only #1 seed not to lose.
Yeah, good point. Good ad there. We're going to move on to the City Section baseball playoffs. I was at the Open Division semifinals yesterday, a doubleheader at Cal State Northridge, and somewhat of the usual suspects in that game. You see the quarterfinal, the Open Division, only 8 teams. So those are the 8 teams there on the left side of that bracket, as you can see. And then in the semifinals, Birmingham, you know, to be honest with you, that was the second game of the night. It was not very close. 4-1. Carlos Acuna was dominant, went complete game, 7 strikeouts. That was it. However, the El Camino Real Granada Hills game was much more entertaining. Granada Hills up 3-0. And then El Camino Real had a great 6th inning, down 3-1. It was RJ De La Rosa. We've got highlights here. Great 2 RBI single to right field. Bam, and that drove in the 2 runs. I mean, obviously not a walk-off, but essentially the game-winning play and hit to give ECR a 4-3 lead. Up until this point, they were 0 for 9 with runners in scoring position. So Josh Leinhard gets his Royals to Dodger Stadium on a 4-3 win. And then we've got actually some footage of the last out. And here it is. So the celebration ensues. Josh Leinhard will actually be coaching his 8th city final as a head coach since becoming the head coach at ECR in 2009, Randy.
2 points here. Give El Camino a lot of credit. They had runners on bases inning after inning after inning, giving themselves chances, and they finally broke through in the 6th. That's 1 point. They were relentless offensively. Number 2, Jackson Sells, their pitcher. Here's a guy that was really not much of a pitcher last year. He was a second baseman. Comes in because they need an arm this year. And he's 10-1, and he holds the fort when they were down 3-0. He falls behind 3-0, and he stayed on course and shut down the Highlanders the rest of the way, giving his team, the Royals, the opportunity to come back. And obviously De La Rosa got the key hit. But Jackson Sells with a big-time performance, not only in the semis, but all season long for Leinart's team.
If I'm being honest with you, I was somewhat rooting for Granada, and here's why. Okay, I got some good stats for you. They actually were the West Valley League champions in 21, 22, 23, and 24. 4 straight years they won the West Valley League and were the #1 seed in the Open Division and have never gotten past the semifinals. They've never gotten to Dodger Stadium. If you know Coach Matt Matuzak, like the coolest, nicest guy ever, great coach, and just can't get over the hump. But this year, he's 1 week away from having his first child, right? They get to the semifinals. I'm thinking, wait a minute. There is a storybook story, more or less, happening right now. They're going to get to Dodger Stadium. And they were up 3-0, and Randy, I'm like, oh, yeah, this is going to happen. And unfortunately, ECR just absolutely rained on that story. But kudos to Coach Josh Leinart. ECR and Birmingham, before we move on, Randy, they're going to see each other in the city final at Dodger Stadium. They did face off in 2018, and Birmingham won 4-3. They know each other very well. This will be the 4th time these two teams play. This year alone, ECR lost 2 of the 3. Birmingham might have the edge. Who do you like on Saturday in the Open Final?
Well, Birmingham's got to be the favorite. They've clobbered ECR the last 2 games. I know ECR won the first meeting, but the last 2 games have not been close. Birmingham's the favorite, but it's 1 game. Dodger Stadium's a different place. It's not like you're playing in a high school stadium. So you got to give ECR credit, especially for Leinart. As great a coach as Josh Leinart has been, this has been his best coaching job. He didn't have players coming back. He had to put this team together. He had like 3 or 4 returning players for the Royals. And for him to mold this squad, have them come from behind in the semis, become one of the powerhouses in the city again with really not much returning, that's a great tribute to Leinart and his players.
Well said. They only had 3 returners from last year, and when they won the championship last year, they had 7 returners on that team. So well said there. 2 last things. Hudson December will be the pitcher for ECR on Saturday, and Nate Soto will be the pitcher for Birmingham. Those are the 2 guys throwing at Chavez Ravine. Last ad, El Camino Real, if they win, will be the all-time winningest program in city section history with 11 city titles, breaking the tie with Chatsworth at 10. If Birmingham gets one, they'll close the gap a little bit closer. It'll be their 9th city title in program history. On to Division 1 we go. There was some drama late last night. Verdugo Hills gets Sylmar, Randy, in 10 innings. Miguel Wong, I believe, was the player for Verdugo Hills to knock in the run in the top of the 10th, and they advance. They'll be in the first city final since 2018. They did win. They beat Carson. I think the score might have been 4-2 or 4-3. And then we got Taft. Look at that. West Valley League representing very well in these 2 finals at Dodger Stadium. They beat Venice 2-0. Quick tidbit about Taft. They did win a city title in 2021, but it was home sites due to COVID. So they've never played at Dodger Stadium. This will be pretty special for this program.
It will be. But again, the rest of the city has to be just shaking their head when it comes to high school baseball because it's always about the West Valley. I would think the rest of the city, even though Verdugo Hills is a Valley team, is rooting for Verdugo Hills to knock off Sylmar. They're getting bored with the West Valley, who seemingly wins the Open Division every year. And I don't have the numbers anymore. I've lost track. Out of the last 55 highest division championship, it was not always called the Open. The West Valley and the San Fernando Valley has won about 50 or 51 times out of the last 55. By the way, Tarek, I do want to bring up quickly a couple memories from Dodger Stadium. I go all the way back to the 82 game when Cleveland beat Palisades 13-0. Brett Saberhagen pitched the no-hitter, maybe the most famous game in the city finals. Steve Kerr, the Warriors Coach, basketball coach, was the third baseman on that Pally team. But the irony is 20 years later, Cleveland came back to the city title against Silmar in 2002. Brett Saberhagen was in the broadcast booth watching his former school win again, 1-0, as Byron Grubman pitched a brilliant three-hitter. And then I also want to talk about Justin Castle in 2002, who pitched a one-hitter for Chatsworth against Carson and won the game 3-0. Those were three of the greatest pitching performances I've ever seen, and those three were at Dodger Stadium.
It's funny, for the Daily News, I wrote a preview for Saturday's game, and my lead is talking about how pitching at Dodger Stadium in the city might be one of the most prestigious high school sporting opportunities in America, because good or bad, unfortunately, that performance gets remembered. And like if in your case, you're pulling back from the 80s, it gets remembered for forever. So what an opportunity these kids get. Soto and December, that's when the Open. I'm not sure who's pitching in Division I, but the Open will be fun. It'll be teams we know. And to your point, all four teams will be representing the San Fernando Valley on Saturday. So I don't know what kind of draw it's going to get. And last ad, you did mention, I think it was San Pedro in 2021 beat ECR in the Open. Again, this was home sites. And I think they were the first non-San Fernando Valley team to win the highest division in the city since something like 1990 or 1989, something wild like that. So great stat that you bring up. We'll see what happens on Saturday. SoCal Prep Report will be there, so we'll have the action next week. Let's move on to the playoffs in softball. We're going to look at the Division I bracket. So these are the quarterfinal results, and then the semifinals. We're now missing one because Etiwanda and La Mirada actually play today, so we don't have that result. But these are the finalists: La Habra, Norco, and J. Serra. So to me, this is surprising. Murrieta Mesa was the #1 seed, Randy. What happened, man? What happened?
Well, they ran into a hot La Habra team who's really a great story here. La Habra's also beaten Orange Lutheran. So La Habra's knocked out two of the powerhouse teams in the southern section. It's really up to Norco now. Norco's the team to beat. Norco's not a guaranteed winner either coming in this week. They have a tough opponent. It's a great D1 formula this year. I thought Norco and Murrieta Mesa were in a league of their own.
Sure.
But that's not the case. I mean, this La Habra team is playing great. They're hitting the softball. Elisa Hernandez, I got her stats down here. She's hitting 400 with 11 homers. She's leading the way for the Highlanders. Give them credit. They've knocked out two of the true powerhouses, certainly in Murrieta Mesa, and a big-time win coming from behind to beat Olu 11-8.
Let's take a quick look at the City Open, which hasn't started. That starts today. And again, it's 8 teams, just like baseball. Not too much to talk about here yet, simply because the games haven't transpired. But I do have one note for, let's see, 2023, 2024, and 25. So the past 3 years, the final has been Granada and Carson. It's very possible we see the same thing again here in 2026. Carson won in 23 and 24 by the scores of 12-11 and 1-0. And then last year, Granada Hills broke through and won 11-2. So again, we'll have updates on that next week as we finish out this prep year. Any quick notes there for you, Randy, before we move on?
Yeah, on that 12-11 game, the first one won by Carson. Carson was up. They were up 10 runs.
Yes.
And Granada scored 10, I believe, in either the 6th or the 7th to tie it. Then Carson got a home run to win at 12-11. But that's how great those games have been. It was a 10-run difference, and Granada came all the way back to tie it only to lose. Now, last year, Granada was the best team in the city and dominated Carson. But I think you're right. Carson and Granada very well could be on a collision course again.
Moving on quickly, I do want to get to a couple things here. Just a quick board of the volleyball championships. Boys volleyball, probably in my opinion, one of the most underrated sports in Southern California because it's so good. I think of boys water polo and boys volleyball. We're talking like some of the best teams in the nation, yet they kind of just get buried under the football, the baseball, the basketball. But Miracosta, juggernauts, they beat Loyola, a juggernaut in themselves, 3-0. Olu and St. John Bosco win the Division II and Division III respectively, and Chatsworth once again wins the city, I think avenging an earlier season loss to Granada in the West Valley League bout, and they win 3-1. Cena Agassi, he's been on this show a million times. He wins another city title. So that's a quick wrap on volleyball. Any quick notes on that?
Yeah, Miracosta is the #1 team in the country. They're not just one of the best, they are the best team. Mateo Furbringer, a 6'4" outside hitter, maybe the best player in the country, and he dominated Loyola. He had 27 kills. They couldn't stop him early on. He set the tone. And Miracosta beat Loyola 2 times this year, and they've won the last 6 sets against the Cubs. The Cubs don't lose very many sets the whole year. And so I forget matches, they don't lose sets. But Miracosta, after falling behind 2 sets to love the first time they met the Cubs, beat them the last 3 sets to win in 5 and 3 straight this time for the CIF Southern Section Championship. Miracosta, already doing well in the regionals, is very much the best team in America.
Randy, I'm going to let you anchor this one a little bit, man. Lisa Leslie's getting a statue. Don't you have the story? Didn't you, like, miss her 100-point game or something like that and went to another game? Or is that a Cheryl Miller story? You're going to refresh my memory on this one.
It was a Cheryl Miller story. I was doing an ESPN game, and I knew that Miller was the best player in high school basketball at the time, and she was playing, obviously, out in Riverside. I didn't go, and she scored over 100 points.
That's
but
what
you
it was.
are right. Lisa Leslie did score 101 points, and she did it in the half against South Torrance. Can you believe that? It's amazing.
I can't.
She took close to 60 shots in the first half, scored 101 points. Lisa was a marvelous lady. She sat next to me when I did Sparks games on the bus when we were traveling on the road. And I remember one time there were girls outside that wanted the autograph. The bus was ready to pull away. She stopped the bus. She went out, signed the autographs, and came back. Lisa's a sweetheart, and she is one of the great women's basketball players of all time.
2-time WNBA champion, 3-time WNBA MVP, 8-time All-Star, and 4-time gold medalist. Though all she did in the WNBA, it wasn't quite as popular as it is today. To me, Lisa Leslie, I think of USC, and I think of her time as a USA women's basketball player. That, to me, I think early on, WNBA wasn't quite. Now, she was a pioneer, so to speak, of the WNBA and how it got started. But,
and
yeah,
of course,
that's how I remember her.
She went to Morningside in Inglewood, so that's why we discuss her.
Correct.
She's a local product, and she scored the 101 points in the one half when she was playing for Morningside. Just a tremendous lady, though.
And I love that she's getting a statue, I believe, outside crypto. So that's why we're bringing her up. Okay, and just to finish off this show, ladies and gentlemen, we want to honor Jason Collins. He recently passed away. He had an aggressive battle with cancer and died. Jason Collins was a standout with his brother Jaron at Harvard Westlake. There's the photos of those guys hitting the books. They were high-level academia-type student athletes. But Jason lost his battle, but he's got a great story about how he broke barriers at the professional levels. Here's a video and a tribute from Ramona Shelburne and ESPN.
Jason Collins did not set out to become a trailblazer. He just wanted to belong, to earn a spot in the NBA, to be respected for who he was. So for most of his adult life, he hid the fact that he was gay from everyone. He worried he would be rejected if anyone knew, that he'd no longer have a place in the NBA. But there came a point when living in the closet was not living at all. A trail needed to be blazed.
A landmark day in sports and in our society. NBA free agent center Jason Collins has become the first active men's player in a major team sport to announce that he is gay.
Checking in for your Nets, number 98, Jason Collins.
I told him I couldn't be prouder of him. To see a role model like that who's unafraid, I think it's a great thing.
It changed everything for him and so many others.
When I did come out publicly, I got back-to-back calls from Oprah Winfrey and President Barack Obama. And something that President Obama said was that, congratulations, but what you've done today will have a positive impact on someone you might not ever meet in your lifetime.
If anything, he wished he'd done it a long time ago.
Everyone can learn that your life is so much better when you don't have to hide. You just show up unafraid to be your true self.
So when he was diagnosed last fall with one of the deadliest forms of brain cancer, he decided to blaze a new trail. Traveling to Singapore to receive an experimental treatment he hoped would extend his life.
It's really high-tech, science fiction type stuff, but we are in the city of the future, so let's do some future stuff. It was an easy decision to get more experimental. Just like I knew I was doing the right decision when I came out publicly, and if not for me, for someone else.
Collins fought cancer with everything he had. The experimental treatment seemed to shrink his initial tumors. He was able to return to the United States and see his family, attend the NBA All-Star game in Los Angeles, and watch a game at his alma mater, Stanford. Those extra months were a gift. But eventually the cancer returned with a vengeance and claimed his life at the age of 47. Jason Collins did not set out to be a trailblazer. He became one. For himself, and for so many others he will never meet.
I am unafraid to break through a wall or try to, do everything possible. We have a saying like, you gotta be willing to jump in the foxhole. And when stuff gets tough, like, there's some people who start running for the bus. I'm not one of those people.
Why are you unafraid?
I think because I'm so surrounded by love. And I know that my family is so strong, and they will be okay.
Jason and Jaren, I think locally were maybe the twin towers of high school basketball before, the twin towers of Tim Duncan and David Robinson at the Spurs. That's kind of the time frame I look at it. But clearly, Randy, not only was he a great basketball player and a great human, but he left a legacy and he broke barriers.
He really did. His smile and warmth tell it all. Like I mentioned with Lisa, I had an opportunity to interview the Collins twins many years ago. And when they walked out of the building, they said, there goes two really nice guys. In terms of his playing career at Harvard-Westlake, when he got there in '93, Harvard-Westlake wasn't the power it is today. But he started that with his brother. They won a couple state championships, and they turned the Wolverine program around. But more than that, he was a great individual, and we'll mourn his loss.
Yeah, what stands out to me is his effort, obviously, to get healthy and to go to no bounds. And to me, some of that represents maybe the difficulties he had to, like the decisions he had to make in his life. And I love that. I don't know about how much I love it, but I do admire that he talked about his decision to come out, right, and do that, which is scary, is the same energy in which he put in to do experimental treatment. And I find it, I know, I've got people that have, died to cancer. Randy, I'm sure you have too. And so in that time, you're so scared, you don't know what to do. And so I find it very courageous that he stepped out in so many different facets in his life.
Yeah, really, again, a wonderful individual. And I think he's a tribute to what we see in our society. He's the best of the best. I mean, again, to come out when he did, he was the first guy in a major sport to come out and say he was gay. And he was accepted in the NBA, and he had a long career. And I think he was respected because he did come out. And he was such a warm and nice guy. He was likable, like his brother. So he was able to be acceptable. And he was just great for society. And it's unfortunate we lose him way too soon. But again, we're better for having him around for the years that we did have Jason Collins.
Gone too soon is right, Randy. I'm glad we got to talk about him, give a tribute. Gone too soon, 47 years old, Jason Collins. We will remember you here in the San Fernando Valley and at Harvard-Westlake and beyond. Blessing and prayers to your family.